Click here for the PDF of this yellow, white, and black document. There is poison in the tap water. That'll get locals' attention, posted in legal areas. And it goes on in the piece to say, fact, fluoride is a dangerous substance and the active ingredient in most insecticides. If ingested as little as 1/10 of an ounce of fluoride can kill a 100-pound adult, and 1 in 100 of an ounce can kill a 10-pound infant. Studies have shown that exposure to fluoride can cause neurological damage and an increased risk of bone cancer. Fiction. Fluoride added to the public water supply strengthens teeth and helps prevent cavities. Demand safe water. Demand the truth. Visit Infowars.com. There is poison in the tap water. This is how a free humanity would resist. They would go out and hit the enemy everywhere. Now, the media is going to go absolutely ape over this if you post these everywhere. They're going to try to demonize whoever did it in your area. They're going to demonize yours truly, but then it's going to spur a public debate that this is poison. And a lot of local media is now admitting it's poison because they're reading about the EPA scientists saying take it out. So the key search term is poison tap water. The key search term, 3 words, poison tap water. Get it out to everybody. We're unstoppable together. God bless you. Alan, I'm going to try to sit back in the last 23 minutes and shut up and have you break down this. And while you're talking about all the different poisons and things, I'm going to show mainstream news articles proposing drugs in our water to make us servile. Alan Watt, break it down.
Yes, I mean, it's obvious if you want to take down a whole population and the whole world's populations, you must literally attack the one enemy they have, and that's your ability to survive, because you're born with innate survival principles. Part of it is intuition, reaction, and your solution to the particular problem. When they can knock out that part of the brain so that you're passive, you don't even notice there's a threat in any direction, then you're a happy citizen. You're exactly what they want you to be. And in fact, I keep referring to wild animals, just watching wild animals. If I get foxes coming around here all the time, and if it's a tree down, the fox, you can sit and watch him at the top of the hill. He won't go past that tree. It's something different in his route, his little circle, and he'll observe it from 50 different angles before he decides it's safe or unsafe to go past it. Because he doesn't know it's a bluff. There could be somebody behind there with a gun to shoot him. Who knows what it is? But that's innate survival instincts. You're born with those things. And we're supposed to have that. Now, the big boys themselves, Charles Galton Darwin and all the rest of them, in the 1950s, a descendant of Charles Darwin, and he was a physicist, this guy as well, who worked on the Manhattan Project. He was a top eugenicist. He was all for world domination. And he talked about the need to eradicate the useless eaters, just like Bertrand Russell. They all knew each other. And he said, we have to. He says, we must retain our capabilities to remain wild. He says, those who survive are wild men. He says, therefore, we are leading the planet Earth. We're the captains of the ship. We must retain those wild men capabilities. But the rest of the public, he said, must literally have their ability destroyed to preserve themselves. They were managed by the state. They've all echoed the same principles, and it's been happening all our lives long.
You just read a quote from one of these psychos.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's right. And they mean it. And not only they mean it, they work for top world societies linked with the United Nations. The United Nations is the front, of course. Wherever they've gone with inoculations, that's what they've done, is to destroy, especially the so-called primitive tribes that have lived for thousands of years, completely independent from the rest of the world. They've given them inoculations. It's the first thing they do. When we went into Iraq, the first group that went in after the troops was UNESCO for inoculations, to make sure the children got inoculations. That will raise up a population who are easily managed and pliable. Now, when you go into military strategy, going as far back as World War II, they talked about prolonged warfare over populations. Prolonged, that meant intergenerational warfare. If something lasted 40, 50 years, because we've had 100 years wars in the past, we forget these things. These guys don't. They're trained in this stuff. They said they'd have to make sure that the upcoming future troops would have to be hit either at birth, pre-birth, that meant inoculating the mother while the child's in the womb, or getting the child very soon after birth with inoculations to make sure that he grows up and he will not be a fighter. He won't mind being dominated or ruled. These are in military manuals that they teach at the top military colleges. So they've been doing this in Iraq, of course, and I'm sure in 20, 30 years' time you'll see the results of it with a dumbed-down, happy population with hats on backwards dancing to rap music and taking drugs and all the rest of it. But they will be unconcerned that they're dominated by foreign powers. This is long-term strategy for the entire planet. And as I say, the ones at the top who formed the League of Nations and formed the United Nations, that was their goal, to bring about a world of peace. Peace is where those who should naturally rule the world are ruling the world. And I mean naturally ruling it. And they believe in the Darwinian principle that those who had achieved total success and held on to power and money through successive generations had proven by the Darwinian principle of survival of the fittest that they had the right to rule. Everyone else who hadn't achieved that particular level or standard of living was therefore a failure. They were the junk genes, and they would only reproduce junk genes, and therefore they had no need for them in a post-industrial society. This stuff was discussed before World War I. By those who eventually formed the League of Nations, then the United Nations. So this has been a long-term warfare. We are seeing the effects of it, and we see them going further. They can go further now because most of the public, to be honest with you, cannot take any information critically anymore. They are too damaged to take it. On the one hand, it's a double think. They think we're being managed, and they're happy to be managed by superior people. That's what they think of politicians, as superior people. And on the other hand, when they read the articles about how damaged they're becoming and what they want to do to them next, they're going to double think. I love my government. I love those special people so that who allow me to go out and play all the time. Well, I don't have to make any big decisions, and they wouldn't do anything to hurt me, surely. And so that's how they react to articles that come out with the proof and the evidence to what's happening to them and their children. They wouldn't do anything to harm me. They're too far gone to put two and two together. They are out of the running. They're the casualties of war. Yeah.
Well said, Alan. And while you've been talking, I'm just showing New York Times, LA Times, how great it's going to be to put lithium in your water, how great it's going to be to inject you. You'll never be upset again. This is literally destroying free will. And you know the housewives and the soccer moms are going to march their daughters and sons in, and Jimmy's not going to be bad anymore. He's not going to even be alive. He'll just be a worker that does what they're told. And it says the government's going to fix our malfunctioning brains to make us better workers. We're not going to get tired. Stress is meant to make you tired so you don't work to death. You're not going to complain. We are literally biological androids, and they're shooting all the cops and military up with it, and they're just gone. They're gone.
You're right with the cops and the military. I mean, you've read the same articles, I'm sure, from one of the chief of police officers who belongs to the World Society of Chief Police Officers under the UN in the U.S., and he said himself that he and his men were now on testosterone implants under the skin. They get them renewed every month or so, and it makes them more aggressive. They're not brighter, that they're still being damaged mentally.
And again, the Pentagon talked about that in Wired Magazine 10 years ago. They said because we're drugging the water to make people servile, our troops are becoming wimps. We're going to have to supplement aggression drugs and testosterone, and then later amnesic so they forget the mass murder. And so now major police chiefs, like the police chief, the one you're mentioning is in Fort Worth, that was 3 months ago, said, yeah, we're going to go on roids. So they have to take drugs to remasculize themselves because they've all been hit like the general public.
Yes, but they've all been hit, but so they have no wisdom. Therefore, they're even more ruthless once they get high doses of testosterone. And so they're more lethal, they're more aggressive, and they have no wisdom. They have no humanity actually left in them. They're so dumbed down. So that, yes, they're aggressive, but they don't have the wisdom or the compassion to balance the two in comparison to the job that they're supposed to be doing. So they're very dangerous. They're great tools for them. And remember, this is the thing, that so many articles came out years ago saying the mind is the final frontier. The conquering of the mind is the final frontier. And that, of course, is what Kissinger and all the big boys were in. He wrote about that to an extent, little hints here and there in his book Between Two Ages in the Technotronic Era, where he said that through ELF waves and various other things, as I said, remember, all your cells are programmed by very tiny, tiny electrical currents, very tiny. And they can match those electrical currents by using ELF waves and so on.
And that was in the Baltimore Sun about 7 years ago, and now DARPA admits, we're now testing soothing ELF wave towers. And so from us being kooks saying it to, we are drugging you, we are going to inject you, there'll be no more pain after this, and we are putting up towers to make you happy.
That's correct.
I mean, and to show the public's under mind control, they're announcing all of this. And notice only the illegal aliens can march by the millions because they've been in Mexico and haven't been on these drugs as long. So they're coming from a primitive society up here. And then meanwhile, Bloomberg announces all the major insurance companies are now taking people's insurance when they die and just saying we're doing it. They're now just stealing everything because they know, from your research, what percentage of the public has already been pretty much lobotomized?
I'd have to say it's over 70%.
Please continue.
Yeah, I mean, everyone really, it isn't just the fact that you get one set of injections, it's the follow-ups and what they can actually do, and they've admitted this too in warfare principles, is they can release a chemical or something into the bloodstream, and anyway they get it in, food, water, whatever, spraying it from the air, which they're doing too. And that can literally, that can it's like cocking the trigger of a firearm. That can cock the body's system ready for a booster shot years down the road, and the booster literally kicks it off.
A binary weapon.
Yes, absolutely. These are so far advanced in this technology that it's incredible.
And by the way, for years, Alan, just like you, all I do is read the research papers. They're all bragging about it. What do you make of Jonah Lear, who's a Rhodes Scholar and is an expert on psychology and neuroscience for Wired, The New Yorker, all the major elite publications? He also works for NPR. He's come out and called me a liar, saying that they're proposing putting lithium in the water when his own colleagues, including in Oxford, are calling for Prozac drugs, everything. And then even though the video he critiqued shows the mainstream news articles saying they're doing this and that these new virus vaccines go in and block aggression and anger and resistance, he comes out and just says he's a kook and wrote a story saying that I'm basically into the end of the world and aliens. I mean, he's not addressing me. He's not addressing I or you. He is addressing the zombies. And he says, no zombies, there aren't space aliens, when that's not, and there's no lithium in the water. So he mixes it together, and you look at it and it's dumbed down to like a 4-year-old level, and you go, how do people buy this? Because
Russell explained that very, very well. He said that their techniques are training the general population to only accept the opinion of experts. And, of course, once you bring up these celebrities who are experts with a lot of letters behind their names, you see, from official, world-recognized organizations, that's how the public's been trained. That's the word they'll take. And unless you're up there with them, with all those multi-lettered numbers behind you, they're not going to listen. They've already been trained that way, listening only to experts. Look at the weather station. When the weather station first came out, I thought, what idiot wants to sit and watch the weather 24 hours a day? It wasn't for that purpose, because the first little rain that they had, it was going to be a storm. Same with the snow, too. Everything was going to be a storm, a crisis. It was part of the getting ready for the weather modification stuff and so on, and the climate change nonsense. It was training the public for that. But also through their little ads, it'd have, it's going to rain today, then they'd show you someone wearing a raincoat, and they're teaching like a child that you can't make a decision on your own. You must get an expert, even to tell you how to dress.
That's why the news will say, it's going to rain today, so take out an umbrella, or it's hot out, drink water. And they talk, and I've noticed, like Congressman Stark and others, and Nancy Pelosi, they talk to you like you're a child with neuro-linguistic programming, and they talk to you, and then in town halls, they'll make little giggles and like faces like my grandmother would make to me, like little charming, get in the car, little boy. But, it's not grandma, it's these killers, and they're all been trained with the Delphi technique. They're just hardcore crooks.
They are crooks, but I'll tell you another thing, too. There's a lot of people today, as you well know, who listen to nothing but junk news from the regular media, and the celebrities in Hollywood and all the rest of it, who cannot think for themselves anymore. They literally wait to be told what to think and what to talk about by the so-called experts, even if it's junk Hollywood news.